Welcome to another Monday night on HBCU Sports Live. I'm Kendrick. That's Chris, who's on the DSU Hornet Express, apparently.
Choo-choo!
They had a hell of a game this weekend. And then Jared Hoffman, Team Tiffany. There's nothing else you're going to call yourself this week?
I mean, my dogs lost, so I guess unoptimistic bulldog, I guess. I don't know.
You ever know that Coward King Rashad's not here today? Our this team dropped the State Fair Classic to his daddy, Bubba McDowell, and the Prairie View Panthers over the weekend. It's funny how that works. You know, you talk all that stuff for the last 2 weeks, and then when the school go down in a blaze of glory, you don't show up next week. Okay. We can see if we show up on Wednesday, though. But we're all here, though, despite the outcome of our football teams. Mine won again this weekend. Kansas State holding down the fort for the SWAC East this weekend, but we're definitely gonna we're definitely gonna. The boss is listening. If you're listening, come on the show and defend the world's greatest school, as you say. And we got the Ram Nation chiming in, Jared.
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah, man, Ram Nation be watching our show, man. We gotta be careful what we say on here.
No, we don't. No, we don't care about them Rams. Get them out of here. Matter of fact, block them from the chat. Block them from the chat.
No, we're not gonna go that far. We're not block anybody from the chat. But yeah, so it's gonna be a fun night. We're gonna recap what was an exciting weekend of football games. I'm gonna go around the room and ask Jared and Chris what was their best and worst of the weekend, starting with Chris Stevens himself.
Well, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, but damn it, I'm proud to be a Delaware State Hornet tonight. And on previous episodes of this program, I have not been proud to be a Delaware State Hornet. But tell you, man, that offense that Lee Hall has cooked up is starting to finally click on all cylinders. Over 500 yards, 41 points. I believe the 41 points is the most they've scored in the last 7 years. And unfortunately, it wasn't enough because Campbell scored 44, but that's because of a phantom pass interference penalty and a late catch that was reviewed and called good, but that boy's toe was on the line. But either way, very proud of the Hornets. Yes, they're 1-4. They have not, played their best football, but right now they're playing better football than they've played under Lee Hall to this point. And I talked to Coach Hall and to me at Coach's conference this morning. He says they're close, and I have to agree with him. They have the pieces in place that for long contendership because basically all the starters on that offense are freshmen and sophomores and juniors. So got a couple years left to get those guys in the hunt. So that's my best. I'm proud to be a Delaware State Hornet. The worst, Lord, oh Lord. I watched the Circle City Classic because that's part of my, that was part of my duties for this esteemed outlet. And Norfolk State is helter skelter as they come, and the Skelter showed up on Saturday. They after holding North Carolina Central to a 3-and-out on the first possession, they were never in it. And I think that's more just to say just how good North Carolina Central is at this point. I mean, they play Campbell this week, so that might be a 100-point game. So if you like scoring, if you like that video game style, be sure to check out Central versus Campbell this weekend. But those are my two games that I, watched the most and was most interested in from a Division I level. And once again, proud to be a Hornet. Feel like we're turning the corner. I'm going to take another while. Probably we might get another win this year. We might not, but I feel like they're playing better. Right now, North Carolina Central and everybody else in the MEAC.
Jared, I can guess what your worst going to be. What's your best?
Well, I'm not going to include that in my worst. We already know that I'm upset about, well, not upset, disappointed in how Bowie State played against Winston-Salem State. But I'll start with my best. I want to say Clark Atlanta battling back against Lane. I think they showed tremendous heart in that game. They were down double digits in the first half, and they kept their composure, and they showed why they are a team that is for real. They are a team that is ready to take that next step into being contenders. I really like their wherewithal and their resilience to continue to battle against Lane that had a great day on the ground with their duo of running backs, but Clark Atlanta kept it going and they got the win in that one. I love the fact that we're seeing some competitiveness in the SIAC. I bashed them when I was disappointed in them, their performance against the CIAA. Now I really got to praise them. Miles and Albany State, they're rattling together and they're starting to, make their push. We're in conference play, obviously, so the play is obviously going to improve. Benedict is starting to get more comfortable playing with each other. They had a very good performance, an odd performance against Morehouse, but a win nonetheless. So I think that was what I liked from the Division IIs this weekend. What I didn't like, I was highly disappointed in Shaw. That game was over from the offset. I don't know why I let myself get so excited about seeing Shaw. Obviously the Albany State game, that really got my hopes into thinking like they are really ready to take that next step. Christian Peters had that incredible performance, leading them back from down double digits in the fourth quarter, and led them to that win against Albany State. And since then, he has just not been able to keep it up. Obviously they had the good performance against Lincoln. They came up short against Catawba, but he still played pretty well. But they just had no answer for Jada Byers, Curtis Allen, and that Virginia Union offense. They just showed that they're not ready to take that next step. And in Fayetteville State against Virginia State, that's another game where Virginia State, they were coming off a loss against Winston-Salem State, and we were expecting them to have a big performance, and they did. Fayetteville State looked like the team that I said was not going to make it back to the CIAA championship against it this year. They look like that kind of team. Now and they're now behind the 8 ball. They're behind Johnson C. Smith. They're behind State and Union. They got an uphill battle to climb, and Winston-Salem State. They're behind all of these teams, and now they got to play catch up with all those teams left on their schedule. You know what I mean? So I think that was my worst. That I was expecting performances from the top, better performances from the top half of the CIAA, and I just didn't get it.
Yeah, my best of the weekend is the Statesboro Classic, and it was truly a classic football game. Not for the fact that Grambling lost and had to eat crow, but because it was an exciting football game. It went 5 overtimes. Prairie View saved their season for at least 1 week by winning 36-34. Prairie View trailed at halftime, and apparently Bubba McDowell went off on his players and his coaches during the SWAC coaches conference this morning. He talked about like how he kind of challenged his players to play more desperate, to stop shooting themselves in the foot. He had a meeting with the coaches and told them, hey, you got to play the best guys. Like, we don't care who they are. Some guys need a chance. And Jalen Johnson, backup quarterback, his first appearance for the Panthers, came off the bench, led them to 17 unanswered points to start the second half. For them to take the lead, Grambling ended up tying it at the end of regulation on a brilliant drive by Miles Crawley to send it into overtime. And then we just win the overtime after overtime after overtime until finally Prairie View able to pull out the 2-point win, because after the second overtime, they got 2 points in order to score, and Prairie View were able to get a 2-point conversion, and Grambling did not. But that was the game of the weekend for sure. I think the second place game was probably the Delaware State game. As Chris mentioned, my worst of the weekend, this is kind of like non-Black college football related, and Pete Rose both passed away today. Unexpected news. Mutombo, 58 years old, died of brain cancer. One of the great NBA players ever. One of the great defensive players of all time. Yes, everybody wagged a finger in his honor today. Just a great ambassador for the game. Really great competitor. He will be missed for sure. Now, Pete Rose, we just learned tonight he passed away at 83 years old. He was the baseball's all-time hits leader, and he was banned from baseball for gambling on the sport. He was a manager of the Cincinnati Reds back in the day. But yeah, like death touches the sports world tonight. So that's kind of like my worst of the weekend. But I want to get back to that Grambling Prairie View game. And I mentioned before some comments that were made by Bo McDowell. He mentioned today in our meeting with the press that he was like really intent on trying to get his team to play with desperation and fire, because Prairie View had dropped the first 2 SWAC games on their schedule. They were behind the 8 ball in the SWAC West, and they were down 17-7 at halftime. He knew he had to do something, so he called on Jesus to fix the problem. He said that Prairie View needed to come to Jesus meeting. He had a talk with the guys. For those who can't see, I'm gonna read this quote for you. He said, "I had to come to Jesus talk with the coaching staff. I told them what I expected. Why are we not playing this person? I need you to play this guy." Then I told the players we had to figure out how to stop shooting ourselves in the foot and find a way to win this game. And they did. And for 1 week, they saved his job and embarrassed Ken Rashad, who now joins us from parts unknown. What's your mood today, Ken?
I'm in a good mood, man.
You are? You don't feel terrible that your team lost to your daddy, Prairie View, over the weekend?
Grambling doesn't have a daddy.
Okay.
That argument doesn't apply to Grambling, and you sure as hell aren't in a position to make that argument. Because I'm here to tell you now, if Grambling is Jackson State's daddy, Grambling is Prairie View's granddaddy. So now, damn you, Purple Panthers, you punks.
Yeah, so Ken, I'm glad you joined the call, because I want to also talk about some comments that Mickey Joseph made today on the SWAC call regarding the play of the offense, particularly Miles Crawley. And we all observed watching the game that Miles Crawley was off. He finished with 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, put together the drive at the end of regulation to tie the game, made a miracle throw on 4th down to keep that drive alive. Otherwise, it would have lost in regulation. But what do you make of some of Mickey Joseph's comments today about Miles Crawley being a little bit skittish in the pocket, the pass protection not being as good, and more importantly to that, maybe they need to change the play calling on offense?
Well, I didn't get the impression at all that he is. I didn't get the impression at all that he is concerned about Miles at this point. If anything, I think Mickey is making the argument that Miles just simply isn't getting enough protection. He just doesn't get enough protection from his linemen. So he's even indicated that he's already been going to a 5-man front, but that he might even have to go to 6 or 7 with respect to with respect to protection. So I don't know. I think the impression that I got from Mickey is that Miles is still his guy, and that the issue isn't necessarily with Miles. I think his argument is that the issue is with protection.
Yeah, he also said that Miles Crawley is also banged up a little bit, nursing an undisclosed injury that might have impacted his play these last couple of weeks. But I mentioned the play calling because Eric Dooley's offensive coordinator there, and when he was at Southern, he was at Prairie View, he got criticized at least by the fan base for the way he's called football games, kind of being a little bit stubborn. And Mickey Joseph mentioned today that, like, maybe they have to change their identity a little bit. Maybe not be so pass heavy as they are offense. So what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, and now, so just so you know, I didn't get the entire gist of your question. You froze up, but he made it perfectly clear that he is a guy and his offense is a pass first offense. He made it clear that his offense, he intends to pass with the, he wants to pass with the intent on opening up the run. So there's a part of me that kind of appreciates what he's saying because he's not trying to hide it. He's not trying to give you coach speak. He's just basically telling you what he plans to do. And, he's not he apologized for the performance, but he's not by any means trying to, be cute with what his overall intentions are with respect to how to run that offense. So, the impression that I got is that he intends to stay with Miles, and that the focus basically needs to be to just get more protection for Miles.
Yeah, Jared or Chris, do you think Miles Crawley has played up to the expectation of being SWAC Offensive Player of the Year and being one of the top contenders for the Deacon Jones Award so far this season?
I haven't seen enough of Grambling to say. I can only go off of what Ken observes and what Coach Joseph has said. But right now, I don't see an Offensive Player of the Year in the SWAC at this point. Daniel Richardson had a good start, but again, those games were against Norfolk State and South Carolina State. We'll have to see what happens once SWAC East play starts this weekend at Alabama State. So if Miles Crawley's struggling and every other quarterback in the conference is struggling, because, there really just hasn't been a standout QB at this point. Jackson State's two-man system is well documented. Alabama State, of course, lost Andrew Body on the first game of the season, and they don't seem too inclined on throwing the young man they got from Eastern Illinois. I forgot his name, that doggone quickly. They're not going to throw him back in the fire. So there's not really a quarterback in the SWAC that is overwhelming at this point. So, Miles Crawley is not alone in that regard. If Mickey Joseph feels like he needs to go to a double tight formation, then that's an offensive line issue. And that's something that he's going to have to go over with his O-line coaches and probably do, maybe even though Miles isn't going to be the guy next year, whoever the quarterback is going to be in 2025, you got to get some guys that's going to protect him. So, but the good news for Grambling is it ain't over because, as it stands right now, Prairie View still has 2 losses. 2 games they should have won in the SWAC West. They're already, they're only up on Grambling by half a game. We don't know what we're going to get from Alcorn State. Alcorn State, yes, they beat Mississippi Valley State. That's what they were supposed to do. But we don't know if this is a contending team in the SWAC West. We don't know if Texas Southern has they played a lot better. Credit to Chris Dishman for coming into that dumpster fire and making that thing at least halfway decent. But I don't see them as a contender. Southern, they're still up in the air. So that SWAC West is far from decided. So Grambling still has a chance to go ahead and catch Prairie View or whoever might be ahead of them at this point in time. Southern as well, because you can't guess what those other 4 teams are made of at this point in time.
Right. Jerry, what's your thoughts on Miles Crawley and kind of like Grambling's prospects moving forward?
Well, like Chris said, I haven't really seen enough of him playing to really have an accurate assessment about, what the issue is or what if he's the leader and if he's a SWAC Offensive Player of the Year candidate right now. If you look at the numbers, then it says that it should be either Mekhi Hagans or Daniel Richardson, but Mekhi Hagans, UAPB is not going to win enough games for Mekhi Hagans to be in that discussion, and I don't see his play sustaining long enough for him to be able to win that award. Who knows? Maybe he'll prove me wrong. He's played well up to this point, so we'll see. But I think that if there's anybody that could potentially be leading the clubhouse, it's either Daniel Richardson, or if it's not a quarterback, it'll probably be Jamar Gassett from his top receiver with Florida A&M. He's had a pretty good season through 4 games. He's, I think, second in receptions, despite only playing 4 games, while the leader, I believe, is from UAPB, has 30 receptions. So I think right now he's probably the leader in the clubhouse for SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. Like Chris said, there's nobody that really sticks out in terms of quarterback play in the SWAC right now, and really in HBCU football right now. There's not too many quarterbacks that are really popping off the page. Like Walker Harris has been inconsistent. He's been every other game he's had good performances, but he hasn't really put together the best body of work in totality. Like dang, I just forgot his name. Johnson C. Smith, the Ocean kid from Johnson C. Smith. He's had a pretty good season so far. But right now, David Wright is the class of HBCU football when it comes to quarterbacks right now. I don't think there's really anybody that we can look at the Division I level and we could say that quarterback has stood out compared to anybody. So I don't think that this is a problem that is like just a Miles Crawley problem. I think this is a Division I HBCU quarterback problem as a whole, that nobody has been able to be consistent so far. But as we get into conference play, maybe things will start to get better. But as of right now, we haven't seen any consistency from anybody at the Division I level.
But Kendrick, to answer your question, I think even if you were to ask Miles Crawley himself, he'll tell you he hasn't lived up to the so-called expectations that people have had of him going to, being named the preseason player of the year. And even Mickey Joseph, in so many ways, throughout at least the last 2 to 3 weeks, has said the same. So, I mean, it's a fair question, but I don't think anyone at this point is under the impression that he's lived up to the expectations of the preseason honor. But there's a lot of football to be played. And luckily for Grambling, I'm told that injury of his is supposedly a hamstring. I don't know how true it is. I haven't been able to verify it, but luckily for Grambling, they're going into a bye week, and they literally have 2 weeks to prepare before they play Alcorn in 2 weeks. So real quick, for those individuals who are watching us on Twitter, shout out to you. Thank you so much. But if you would, could you do us a favor real quick? We don't want you to leave Twitter, but could you leave Twitter and go to our HBCU Sports YouTube channel, subscribe? We really appreciate it. And if you really like to comment, you can just hit the live button on Twitter, and you are also able to make comments, and we'll make sure that engage with us and let us know what you think about today's stream and so forth. So go ahead, Kendrick. Sorry about that.
No problem. Got to get promotion in there. I understand that. But I want to pivot to a topic I've been thinking about for this past weekend and maybe a little bit longer. I know it's early. I know conference play has just started now for each conference that we cover, but there's got to be some conversation about coaches on the hot seat so far this season, just based on performances the last couple of weeks or maybe the last couple of years. And I identified 3 coaches that could possibly be on the hot seat because of the performance the last couple of years. Is limited to second-year coaches only. And these are right here. You got Kendrick Wade Jr. for Mississippi Valley State, Raymond Woody Jr. for Bethune-Cookman, and Vincent Brown for North Carolina A&T. All of them are in their second season as head coaches at their schools. And it doesn't like very much progress is happening at any of these places where they're coaching. So fellas, is it fair for, I guess, me to pinpoint these gentlemen as possibly being on the hot seat at this point in their career, and this point in the season, starting with Ken?
After 2 years on the hot seat, after 2 years? I mean, it's all relative. I mean, I get the question, but I think it's all relative to the situation and to the coach.
Well, that is true. I mean, obviously, all the rebuilding to some level.
I wouldn't put Woody on the hot seat. I wouldn't put Woody on a hot seat just yet, given the circumstances in which he came in, given what has transpired since he has been the head coach. I put like this, and I actually see a difference in the quality of play with Bethune-Cookman, despite the win-loss records. But Woody's got a lot of deficiencies that he has to deal with as well. Trying to recruit players, The program appears to be committed to trying to improve with him. So I don't know if we can put Woody on the hot seat just at this point. There's been I think, now, granted, you will put that Clark Atlanta loss on there. Yeah, that was a bad loss, but sometimes there's a saying. Sometimes you got to go through something in order to get to something. Maybe that Clark Atlanta loss and all of the woes that they're kind of going through right now, maybe something, I don't know. Maybe I just. Raymond Woody doesn't strike me as the type of person that right now that I think Reggie Theus would have on a hot seat, given what Reggie Theus is trying to do for that program, given what little what advances they've made up to this point. I think out of the three you've just mentioned, I don't know if I'd put Raymond Woody on that list just yet. I mean, feel free to disagree, but
yeah. I would say they were the trendy pick to at least compete a little bit better in the SWAC this season, because of the recruiting class and where you thought, well, the second year in there, because of how they recruited, they'll be a little bit better, and they haven't won a game yet so far. And while they competed this past weekend against Alabama State, which was picked to win the SWAC East, they're still having too many turnovers, too many penalties, too many missed opportunities. They haven't been able to put together a full game yet, and we thought there was going to be the Clark Atlanta game, and with 3 quarters they had put together a decent game, and it collapsed in the fourth quarter, which was the worst loss anybody has had so far this season. And it just was been disappointing coming out of what happened with the Ed Reed thing, and you think maybe they'll turn the corner year 2, and it just hasn't happened, despite the fact that they've been relatively competitive. It just hasn't resulted in wins yet.
Yeah.
Chris or Jared, what you make of Raymond Woody being on this list?
I don't think it's fair, honestly, because I mean, shout out to It's Me Right Now in the chat, made a great point that Woody and Wade, they're both alums of their institutions. And Woody, I mean, we saw how he came in. He came in on the heels of Jared's favorite person, Ed Reed, talking crazy about the entire university and just raising all sorts of hell to the point where they couldn't even honor his contract because he was acting such a damn fool. And you bring in Ray Woody Jr., who of course played under both Larry Little and Sean Wyatt at Bethune-Cookman. So, I mean, this is a dude who knows this program's highest heights, and I think he deserves more of a chance. Granted, blowing a 27-point lead to Clark Atlanta is not going to help your chances very much. But that's more so about, yeah, that's a game that a Division I team should not blow, but at the same time, Clark Atlanta is having their best season in 50 years. So things happen. But my pick, quite honestly, is Vincent Brown. And I say this with respect to what North Carolina Central it's North Carolina Central. North Carolina Central just beat their doors, and I mean North Carolina A&T. What North Carolina A&T has in terms of reputation, like they Aggie alums will tell you they lost 27 straight in the MEAC before, so it's like it's not they don't want to blame the Coastal, which I get, but at the same time there just hasn't seemed to be any improvement in the way this team plays, in the way this team recruits, and A&T, they market themselves as the best HBCU in the country. Debatable, yes. Possible, sure. But if your football team is just absolutely getting DDT'd week in and week out, you gotta look a little closer than just blaming the players and blaming the conference. And this is coming from somebody who has told A&T and Hampton both that the MEAC is the Motel 6. We'll leave the light on for you. But if Vincent Brown can't get those guys in there, get kids in there that can compete at least a decent CAA level, then it's time to go look for somebody that does. And I get that, he played at an HBCU. He played 10 years in the NFL as a linebacker. His nickname is one of my favorite nicknames ever, the Undertaker.
Undertaker, yeah.
And he knows the game of football. But I don't think this is the bag for him. And it's just sometimes that we've all had relationships that have gone wrong at some point for one reason or another. Some of us might date people that don't eat pork, or some of us might date people that don't know how to drive, and it just doesn't mesh well with a relationship. So I don't know if Vincent Brown eats pork chops or not, or he's got a few citations on his driving record, but right now this is just not the job for him, and that's okay. There are a lot of schools that there are a lot of coaches that end up not succeeding in one place for one reason or another, but maybe A&T is just not for him at this point in time.
Yeah, Jared, your thoughts?
Well, I'll just talk about each coach real quick. Kendrick Wade, with all due respect to Mississippi Valley State, that's not a job where you're supposed to succeed. Let's just be honest. Mississippi Valley State has not had a winning season in a long time. They haven't had a season where they've even been 500 in a long time. So that's not a place where you are supposed to succeed. It's a place where you're supposed to over succeed. Like in 2021, when they won 4 games, they over succeeded. That's over succeeding for Mississippi Valley State. That's the kind of culture that Mississippi Valley State's football program, their athletic program has. That 4 games is over succeeding for them. So Kendrick Wade being on the hot seat, I don't see that happening. In terms of Vincent Brown, I have no expectations for North Carolina A&T to be good this year. I had no expectations. They performed a lot better than I expected them to against Wake Forest. They performed a lot worse than I expected them to against Winston-Salem State. And they performed even worse against North Carolina Central. So, but I didn't expect them to do anything of note. Now, I did expect them to be much better against South Carolina State. I did expect South Carolina State to win that game, but I thought that they would be better against South Carolina State and that game would go down to the wire, but it didn't. But in the grand scheme of things, I had no expectation of North Carolina A&T coming into this year. Now, when it comes to Bethune-Cookman, and Kendrick said it earlier, with all the transfers that they had coming in, it looked like they were gathering a lot of momentum and that they were going to be a sleeper team in the SWAC this year.
Wow.
I'm just going.
That's the most offensive thing I ever heard in my entire life.
Wow.
Cold-blooded.
I'm not even going. I don't want to laugh at WSSU Ram Nation because he has one over on us, but
I'm gonna laugh at that. That was funny.
That was a good one.
Wow.
But back to Bethune-Cookman. With all of the transfers that they added in this offseason, all of the guys that they were adding, and that they were performing a lot better last year than they did in their previous 2 years, first 2 years in the SWAC. I was expecting them to at least take that next step and to be 500 this year. I had them going 6-6 this year, especially beating Clark Atlanta. And they just have not performed up to even being a decent team so far this year. They look like a team that has taken 2 steps back. And that I don't think that puts him on the hot seat, but that's definitely something where we're looking at you like, okay, you've been here for 2 years. It's not a lot of time, but we still have not seen you improve. So you probably got this year is a grace year. Next year we're gonna have to see some improvements to where you're starting to move this team into the direction of contention. And if you're not moving in the direction of contention, then I still don't think that you're on the hot seat, but that microscope is going to look closer and closer on you as your time continues to go on. And if by year 4 they are not taking that next step, then I think he's on the hot seat. I think we have to start giving coaches a lot more grace when they are handed situations that are not favorable. I think Texas Southern and Chris Dishman, he was not handed a situation that any coach should ever want. He was not put in a situation to succeed. He was given a very short off season. He was given very little time to recruit before National Signing Day, and we're expecting him to have this team in contention. Now he's had them performing a lot better than we could ever imagine Texas Southern to be performing, but it's still not something that we would expect from them because of the situation he was handed. Raymond Woody and Vincent Brown were both handed situations that you should not that you should not give a coach. You should give a coach a boost in order to be able to catapult them into contention in the next couple of years. They've been handed situations where they have to work twice as hard just to get at mid-level, so I don't know if that I clearly communicated my stance there, but I don't think that Raymond Woody should be on the hot seat because he wasn't given a fair shot at giving his team a chance to succeed. And with the recruiting that he did, he outperformed people's expectations. It just hasn't translated to the field yet.
Well, if we look at this, if we look at the overall, Kendrick Marshall was trying to be flamboyant.
Trying to be flamboyant.
You got three coaches 2 years in talking about the hot seat, given their situation. And I'll just add to your point, Jared. Kendrick Wade is in the same situation. I mean, any coach. You just said it yourself. When Valley has a 4-win season, damn it, it's a great year, and that's overachieving, Kendrick Wade wasn't necessarily put in an ideal situation, but to his credit, and I think when these coaches take on the role of head coach at Valley, I think they have an idea. Maybe they're up for the challenge. But I'll admit there have been times when I look at some of these coaches who've come in at Valley, and I want to say there were a couple of coaches who were like fired after 2 years. I'm like, well, damn, what do you expect? You aren't giving these coaches anything to work with. It kind of pisses me off a little bit. And so, here we are now. People make that argument all the time where Valley really shouldn't be playing at Division I AA or shouldn't be playing at the FCS level at football. And, I used to try to defend Valley, but now, and Valley folks, I know a couple of Valley folks, they get upset when it comes up, but you know what? I understand. It's a valid point. It's a valid point.
But I will say though, Ken, in the case of Wade, he talked today about like how he's a little bit more hands-on and more have a quick tool making changes.
Yeah.
He said he replaced the special teams coach and the linebackers coach, and he's looking to make more changes on the coaching staff to get the ship righted, because he knows this is year 2, and he knows that need to be some progress seen, or else there might be some whispers about his job.
And then to that, I would just simply say this: keep in mind, I think didn't Valley just aren't they kind of in flux at the AD level too? Didn't they just have an AD to lead?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that given whether maybe at it could be at the president's level. Somebody, look, Kendrick Wade deserves to have that level of autonomy to operate the way he sees fit. Given knowing what Valley is up against overall, as an athletic program completely, and for him to make certain moves that he's doing right now, and again, despite the win-loss records. Don't know, haven't really seen a whole lot about A&T. But when I look at Raymond Woody at Bethune-Cookman, when I look at Wade at Valley, again, records aside, man, I mean, look, I've seen them play some inspired ball. Those kids are really, really, really trying, And I say that because, I mean, there's some lopsided losses, but I just think that, 2 years on a hot seat, as opposed to like a real hot seat, like Connell Maynard and Dawson Odoms. I mean, that's a hot seat. I'm just saying. But here we are, and I get it. We're trying to be cute here with these 2 year situations. Because give me look, I know of a school that fired a coach 2 years in last year. So yeah, I know it's possible.
I was about to say, Ken, like you can understand.
I know it's possible. I wouldn't have done it, but I ain't complaining right now. I'm just simply saying. So, anything is possible 2 years in. But
your friend Dawson Odom's on the hot seat?
My friend Dawson Odoms, look, he's my friend. And he, I think it's safe to say he is on the hot seat.
Yeah, but I'm not advocating any of these coaches to be fired. I'm just
nobody's advocating that. Of course not. No, but I'm just simply saying, look, the reality is the reality.
Yeah, because like we all see the this is a results oriented business, and we see the result been
Yeah.
good for any of these coaches so
Yeah.
far.
But see, here is why.
and
No, but not to cut. Here is why, and I really mean this. Here is why, compared to other professions, I don't really get too mad about coaches losing their jobs, because chances are, when they do the payout, is, there's a sweet severance package to go with it. Now that may not necessarily apply at depending on the situation, man. But look, at many of the HBCUs at the FCS level, worst case, if a coach is fired, he still got some time. He's getting some money. They're gonna send him on his happy way. If for whatever reason his contract just simply isn't renewed and he's at the end of his contract, then you know what? He lived out his contract. But you look at some of these coaches at at the Power 4 schools, they get fired and they walk away with $25,000. You really think 25, 10, 15, $20 million just to go? I mean, come on, man. I can't sit up here and tell you I feel bad for coaches like that. So, I'm just saying. But yeah, Connell Maynard, Dawson Odoms, my friend Dawson Odoms. Yeah, that seat is hot. Seat is real hot.
Yeah, I don't think, excuse me, Chris, but I don't think it's very fair to put Kendrick Wade in this discussion, because the head coach for Mississippi Valley State is a small issue compared to what that football program has. They have not had, I just looked it up, they have not had a winning season since 2006. 2006. That is not an issue of who's your AD. That is not an issue of the players on your roster. That is not an issue of who is on your coaching staff. That is an issue of your university not taking the necessary care of your football program. It's not caring for your football program. People aren't doing their jobs in your football program if you have not had a winning season. And they haven't had a season with more than 2 wins since 21, when they won 4 games, like I just mentioned. So I don't think that's an issue of who's your AD or who's on your coaching staff or who's in the locker room. That's an issue of what do we need to do as a football program collectively. That is a small issue. Now, in terms of Dawson Odoms and Norfolk State, they looked great against Florida A&M in the season opener. They looked great to the point where we were saying that they could potentially make some noise in the MEAC. Now we've seen them in MEAC play against North Carolina Central, and we saw what happened. So was it fool's gold? Was Florida A&M just not as good as we thought they would be? Who knows? But all I know is that we've seen a steady decline in Norfolk State since they played in the MEAC SWAC Challenge against Florida A&M. Whether that has any bearing on Dawson Odoms at the end of the season, who knows? But it's not looking good for Norfolk State right now. Alabama A&M, it's just a matter of time, quite honestly. Because outside of Mississippi Valley State or Bethune-Cookman, I don't see where Alabama A&M can get wins. I quite honestly don't. I don't know if they play UAPB this year also. Maybe that could potentially be a win for them as well. But I don't see too many wins for Alabama A&M unless they get lucky and a team just comes in there underestimating them and they punch them in the mouth. Now, that is possible. That is very possible. But how many teams are going to do that when they know what's at stake? So I think that Dawson Odoms and Connell Maynard, they are in a much more critical discussion about being in the hot seat than these 3 coaches are, who have barely gotten time to make anything happen for their universities, or they just have not been put in positions to be successful in their positions at their universities.
Yeah, Jared, we've been saying for a minute that Connell Maynard's on the hot seat, and this is about year 3 of Connell Maynard being on the hot seat, and nothing's happened yet. So when will change be made at Alabama A&M? We don't know. We don't ever know.
He's the Wayne Fonts of the SWAC. For those of you of a certain age, you may remember the Detroit Lions had a black head. Well, I think he was black.
Yeah, Wayne Fonts was black. Yeah, he was black. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I mean, you never know. He could be Italiano.
He didn't look it, but he was black.
Yeah, I thought he might have been Italiano, but yes, Wayne Fonts, a black man. The running joke on ESPN's NFL Primetime, hosted by Chris Berman, that Wayne Fonts was Rasputin, an old Russian dictator that they tried to get rid of but just couldn't get rid of. And That's what Chris Berman used to call Wayne Fonts all the time, Rasputin. So in turn, I have to call Connell Maynor the Wayne Fonts of the SWAC because he again, Kendrick is right. That man been on the hot seat since before the pandemic. Now we've got to and this is a gentleman that said he gets paid to win SWAC games, and
Yeah,
he hasn't won many of them.
but I think he got that. I think he get a contract extension after winning the SWAC championship during the spring COVID season.
I believe he did.
And that was 20. So I think that was a 4-year contract. So I think this is the final year, man. So I'm just saying. I think that is it QB issues or Maynard? He was great with the Keel Glass. Yeah, man, it's amazing it's amazing. But you know what? They lost. Did they lose a couple of receivers that played up
there? They lost Abdul Fattah Ibrahim.
Yeah,
the guy Tank Dell, who is currently on the Houston Texans. Yeah. He left them and went JUCO, and then he went to, I believe, Houston.
Yeah, so I mean, look,
they've lost a lot of talent, and they've lost the Zarion Hayes, who was one of their top defenders from last season. So they've lost a lot of talent. So it's not. I don't think it's a matter of Connell Maynor being a bad coach, because I think anybody up here who knows Connell Maynard's pedigree, saw what he did at Winston-Salem State and saw what he did at Hampton. Yeah. We know he's not a bad coach. This is just not worked out for him ever since Quill Glass left. So I just think he needs a change of scenery. I don't know if it's an institution issue. I don't know if it's a him issue. I don't know if it's a personnel issue. I just know that what I've seen has not worked, and there needs to be a change somewhere. Now, are we scapegoating him? We'll have to see whether or not if he stays or not. But I just know that what we have seen on the field from Alabama A&M during that COVID season and the 2021 fall season, minus that Jackson State loss, I think that is not the same Alabama A&M team that we are seeing now. I don't see any prospect of positivity coming from Alabama A&M right now.
Yeah, they just seem to exist. I don't know if it's a good thing. They're not good. They're not bad.
They're just A&M.
They're just there. Yeah.
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 A&M has had. I was reading WSW's Ramsey. AMU has had one non-COVID championship since joining the SWAC 25 years ago.
Yeah, I think they last won in like 2006 or something like that.
Man, people was living good in the era of George Bush. Who knew?
Don't tell the Kanye West, man.
Wow.
You wouldn't agree with that, especially for Black people. That's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving on. I came across an interesting tweet this afternoon while preparing for the show. Actually, 2 tweets, actually. This is by Stan Beckton, who writes for NCAA.com. He mentioned today that he's going to put together a story that says it's likely this year that there will be no Black college football programs that will qualify for the FCS playoffs. His subsequent tweet after the first one is that the best team that has a shot is probably FAMU, but because of how their schedule is going to shake out this year, they likely won't be a playoff team, and North Carolina Central will probably be the other playoff team, but they're likely going to win the MEAC, and the other teams in the MEAC aren't up to par, as we kind of discussed earlier. So what do we make of, I know it's early in the season, playoff talk is like a long way away, but what do we make of the possibility that there would not be a North Carolina Central this year making the playoffs? There will not be a FAMU making the playoffs. Does that speak to more of FAMU and North Carolina Central, or the fact that maybe this is just a down year in Division I Black college football?
Man, look, let me just say this, okay? And I say this respectfully to Stan Beckton. Okay, I met him a couple of times. Real nice guy, but this is such a non-damn story. There is nothing to this. No FC, no HBCU. This ain't nothing new. It's not like we commonly see HBCU programs competing in the FCS playoffs. Come on. See, this is one of the things that kind of pisses me off about trying to create an HBCU story that really isn't one, because people really want to kind of create this these HBCU narrative. That's the narrative they want to create. Oh, those poor HBCUs, they're not going to be able to compete in the FCS playoffs. Not really understanding, damn it, in many instances, HBCUs made a conscientious decision to not make the playoffs a priority. Period. Grambling, Southern made a conscientious decision not to make the FCS playoffs a priority because of the Bayou Classic. Alabama State makes a conscientious decision not to play in the FCS playoffs because of the Turkey Day Classic. Okay, when the MEAC made the decision to finally come on board with the Celebration Bowl and they realized how things were going, the conference, as well as the SWAC conference, made a conscientious decision to make the Celebration Bowl to make the Celebration Bowl made a conscientious decision to make that a priority. So stop with this. This is such a non-issue. Come on, Stan. Come on.
Why sound so concerned for Stan?
Yeah, Ken is like.
I don't think he's concerned. I don't think he's concerned for Stan. I think he's
No. I'm joking. It's just the way he said it.
it.
It's just the way he said it was.
But you guys think that's an issue?
No, it's
No, not really. No.
Okay.
I,
All
I
right.
said it.
No.
I said it a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember what we were talking about, but when it comes to institutions, they don't care about the success or the championships. It matters. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but when it comes to the bottom line, which is what makes the most money, that's what's most important. And correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yes.
the FCS playoffs
Doesn't make any money.
it doesn't make money. So why would we care about that? Now, in terms of his point about, I'll address his point just to nip it in the bud. No, there probably won't be any HBCUs in the FCS playoffs because North Carolina Central, they've already lost to Elon. Howard has lost to Princeton. They're
Lost to Hampton.
And lost to Hampton, so that's out. Hampton already lost to Morgan State, and they've already got the doors blown off them in their conference opener, so that's out. Tennessee State has already lost to Tennessee Tech and aren't looking like they're going to have a winning record in conference play. So, and they're probably not going to win the conference at all, so that's out. You got Morgan State, who lost to Stony Brook this weekend, so more than likely that's out. The SWAC in general hasn't been to the FCS playoffs in decades, so I don't.
Fam, you made it in 20.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think any school has put.
Yeah.
I'm just going to echo what Ken said. I
Right.
don't think any school has put any importance into the FCS playoffs.
You have to have a perfect storm. So for what it's worth, I mean, look, the MEAC and SWAC have made the Celebration Bowl the priority, and in the case of the SWAC, the SWAC championship game and the Celebration Bowl a priority because of the revenue possibilities or potentials that come with it. But you still you just have to have a perfect storm in order to have a SWAC team or a MEAC team that's eligible. It's just simple as that. So, let's just say A&M or Prairie View or someone who finishes the regular season before Thanksgiving and have put themselves in a situation to where, you know what, it's become pretty clear we're not going to make the SWAC championship game, but we've got a record and a resume that's strong enough to give us a chance to get an at-large bid to the FCS playoffs. It is very possible. So it's not like we just simply said, forget it. But this is literally a situation where the SWAC as well as the MEAC have an opportunity to kind of have his cake and eat it too. If the Power 4 schools, I mean, look, the damn college football playoffs, man, that is all about money. And they do whatever they possibly can to make sure they can cut off whoever, that perfect system that they got the G4, the mid-level schools, the mid-tier, what do you call them? The G5 schools. You see the formula that they got for them, They're literally creating a scenario to where so that they can't get too many G5 schools, but they can pack as many Pac-4 schools as in there because it's all about the damn money. And then, of course, you got some G5 schools who might just come in and mess some stuff up and could possibly, knock some people all on their ass and upset too, which is why there's that level of intrigue. But with respect to the SWAC and MEAC, I mean, all these conferences are doing on a smaller scale is doing the exact same thing that the Power 4 schools are doing. They are simply following the money. And it really is that simple, So, this is just such a non-issue. I mean, I guess it makes for a good copy, I guess, man. But damn, this is such a non-issue at this point.
Yeah, Ken, you're a veteran.
Shout out to She Loves D, by the way. We'll have you come on, lady, and be a special guest. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, Kendra. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna ask Ken. You've been in this space for a while. Like, why do you think there's a segment of people who hold on to wanting to be in the playoffs? Like, why do we continue to bring this up? Like, why is it a discussion? Like, why does it matter to people that Black College in the playoffs at all?
Why does, say it again? What about the playoffs? Say it again, Kendrick. Man, you need to change that internet.
Yeah, provider. My question was why do you think there's still this appetite for some folks to demand or desire that Black colleges be in the playoffs?
Because they Black and they just want to see, they just have a desire to see Black colleges in the playoffs. You just answered your own question. That's basically what it is. Look, there is a certain level of intrigue, I think, understandably. They just want to see, because you got some folks, I want, they play each other. I've literally heard folks make this comment, they segregated themselves. I actually heard some people say this back in the day when the Celebration Bowl first couple of years. Actually heard some folks, the so-called the FCS norms, make that argument. They've segregated themselves from the damn playoffs, and I knew what that was code for. We all know what that's code for, but yet there's still that certain level of intrigue. Those who want to kind of group all of the FCS teams in there to make that argument, and I understand. Like I said, look, if things work out, and we actually have an HBCU team that makes the FCS playoffs, so they decide they want to go ahead and spend that money. I mean, look, needless to say, I think it's safe to say we're all going to root for them. We're going to root for them, and we're going to track, and we're going to see how well they can do. What year was that? Central went to Celebration Bowl, and A&T went to the playoffs before A&T left. The MEAC. I think they went one year. Clearly disappointed. Broadway did not. After he got a taste of that Celebration Bowl, boy, he wanted no parts of the playoffs. And I think so much so until they got their ass beat that first round. I guess Broadway was like, you know what? Good. I didn't want to go anyway. I'm just simply saying. But I just think that there's just a certain level of intrigue, man, that folks have with wanting to see an HBCU team in the FCS playoffs. And, it's nothing new. It's nothing new.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, no. Does anyone complain that the Ivy League doesn't make the playoffs?
Great stop. Hold on, unstoppable. That's exactly right. That false narrative that we're only taken seriously if we go to the play, that is insane.
Mm-hmm.
When the fact of the matter is, look, watch. It never fails. Wait until the end of the year when the FCS championship. And they're going to have some teams that make these real deep runs. They're going to get to maybe to the quarters or the semis. And I guarantee you will likely find someone who's going to write an article about how much money that program spent or lost making that championship run. It never fails. It never fails. Somebody's going to make that. Someone's going to write a story about that. Watch.
And I real quick, because I want to get Chris a chance to respond to this, but it's that same adage that people always say, we want to be looked at as the best college football team, not the best Black college football team. When the fact of the matter is, there's no difference. There's no
right.
It don't make you look any better or any worse if you're the best college football team or the best Black college football team.
My argument has always been this. because folks, unfortunately, I get the comparisons, but I tell folks all this time, because they say, look at the Ivy League. People want to say, I actually heard some people say the Ivy League, no, they don't take sports seriously. The hell they don't. It's very much a business in the Ivy League. If you notice, the Ivy League won't send a football team to the FCS playoffs, but they'll send a damn basketball team to the NCAA basketball tournament. I wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why. The hell they ain't serious
to get
about
that unit
athletic.
that you get by
Hell yeah, they want that unit.
Yeah.
And in the case of Princeton and some of those other Yale, they'll make it. They'll win a game or two and get you to the Sweet 16. And before you know it, they got 3 units.
Yeah, I mean that was actually what I was going to say. Like, nobody complains when the Ivy League punts on the FCS playoffs because, I mean, they don't. I mean, they don't. They're not in the business of losing money. They're only in business of making it. And it would just be foolish for, say, Penn or Princeton or Yale to go into the FCS playoffs and probably get their brains kicked in by Delaware or William and Mary, and then be short $1 million. I mean, well, probably $1 million won't hurt those schools, but they don't want to lose $1 million. So I mean, they just going to take that money and farm it towards the basketball program. But I'll say this: I did attend an FCS playoff game way back in 2007. It was the last time Delaware State won the MEAC.
Mm-hmm.
It was at the University of Delaware, and this was the team that was led by the legendary Joe Flacco, who of course has now since won a Super Bowl and is now still playing football at the age of 39. Why? I don't know, but that's his choice. God bless him. But after seeing Delaware State get absolutely rocked by UD, which everybody had been calling for years as a regular season game, it was like, okay, cool. All right, fine, whatever. And I mean, I have to admit, when the Celebration Bowl idea first came about, I was one of those people that said, why are we doing this? Like, what sense does this make? But then once I found out how much ESPN was invested into this, every conference makes the MEAC and the SWAC make out good with this. I mean, you get that free advertising, you get that ESPN bump. Even with the FBS playoffs expanding, the Celebration Bowl is still the first bowl game of college football season. That means when you turn on your TV the second weekend in December, you got to turn that joint to ABC, and you are going to hear the awesome Tiffany Green and Jay Walker needling each other about going to FAMU and Howard before giving you guys a great broadcast between the MEAC and SWAC winner. That's the first college football game of the postseason that you get, and it doesn't get much better than that. So it took me a while to come on board with the Celebration Bowl, but now I'm like, yeah, what's the point of the playoffs? I mean, because it just costs too much money. We already know that the teams that are going to be there at the end, and we're not going to be one. I mean, the last HBCU team to even get close was Fort Worth A&M in 1999, and they got robbed at Youngstown State. So it just doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So I mean, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So yeah, the Celebration Bowl right now is the best bet for Division I football.
And not for nothing, not just the fact that the Celebration Bowl makes money, but there have been more hits than misses with the Celebration Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
If there even has been a miss in the Celebration Bowl, obviously 2021 Jackson State had an underwhelming performance against South Carolina State. But you look at the history of the Celebration Bowl, you had the 64-44 game with North Carolina A&T in 2019. You had the defensive battle between Grambling and North Carolina Central in 2016. You had 2022 when North Carolina Central pulled off the big upset against Jackson State, and then last year.
Hey, let's stop talking about Jackson State in the Celebration Bowl. All right, this is bringing back some bad memories.
Hey, man, it's not my fault, man. It's not my fault. And then you had last year again with Florida A&M and Howard last year that came down to the wire. And I mean, there's been more hits than misses. 1 and 2, it's made money. So it's the fact that we've had an outlet for us to have our champions in the MEAC and SWAC play in an actual postseason game that makes money, and they're able to play their best football and put guys in position to be our draft eligible players a position to improve their stock. Look at Kobe Durant. Obviously he put himself in position to be scouted by the NFL because of how well he played against, I believe it was Clemson when they played against Clemson. But part of his draft stock came from the Celebration Bowl and how well he played against them and how he was able to shut down that passing game of, I'm not going to say school name, but yeah, them.
Remember Tariq Cohen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, without question, I'm not saying he wouldn't have gotten any looks,
but
it sure as hell helped with his performance in the Celebration Bowl. Was that year one?
Yeah,
that was year one. Yeah. So look, man, it is what it is, as the folks say. But I look. Someone's got to do it. We gotta write about those HBCUs not making the FCS playoffs. And I'm telling you now,
you don't have to, Ken.
Well, no, I'm saying somebody is going to. Okay, I'm gonna shut up because somebody's going to end up. What are the chances of an HBCU team by the end of the year having a strong showing and not necessarily making it to the SWAC championship game, and someone making an argument for an HBCU team to get an at-large bid? Because there's been a couple of times. I remember when Willie Simmons was at Prairie View, and he tried to make the argument that they should have gotten an at-large bid, and they didn't. And then of course, didn't FAMU get an at-large bid and they played South? What year was that when they played Southeast?
In 2021, they played Southeastern Louisiana. Yeah. And they were upset about not being selected in 2022. Florida A&M was.
Yeah.
That was the year. That was the year they couldn't get in because they lost to. Here you go, Kendrick. They lost to Jackson State 59-3, and that was a part of why they weren't selected in 2020.
Man, you ain't got to pacify that wimp. What? Just
what are you talking? What's the name calling tonight, Ken? What?
See, hold up. You know what, man? Why are you here? Why are you here, G Boom? G Boom with the PB. I saw that little comment you made earlier, by the way. Did you miss the good stuff? I'm not in the mood to get petty with you right now. You still go to PV, and if I told you, I look, man, I'm telling you this right now. I know who this guy is, man. Just I'm gonna tell you what I told Kendrick. If Grambling is Jackson State's daddy, then Grambling is Prairie View's granddaddy. All right. So don't get out of line. You got your little overtime victory. Just be happy with it and go on, okay? Because your season's going. You got one time to lose, and just go on, man. Go on with that. I don't care about your 9-1 that year with Simmons. Y'all didn't deserve to go that way. By the way, I remember that he made the argument. Y'all really didn't deserve to go. That schedule was weak. That was a weak schedule.
So is it true that Prairie View was 6-1 against Grambling in the last 7 years?
Notice he's only limited to 7 years. But let's look at it from last 30, 40 years. So anyway.
So you can't take a loss, man. You always got to come back and threaten people and be petty and tell people what they can and cannot say. You're a horrible person, man.
I want to address EA's comment right quick. Shouts out to EA, who's one of our regulars. He said, you guys are missing the point. As older, wiser gentlemen, you understand budgeting. However, an 18, 20-year-old kid deciding to come to an HBCU or an upper FCS G5 program only here as we compete for the Celebration Bowl.
But you know what?
I don't know.
So what? So I'm saying what? So what are you saying, EA? So I'm saying what? That they should go? Because I'm telling you now that because I mean, for the HBCUs that actually have gotten at-large bids, I mean, I think they do it for the kids. That's the reason why they go play. They figure, you know what? These kids have played hard during the course of the regular season. Who are we to rob them of the opportunity to at least try to compete for a national championship? So as a result, the school takes the hit. But look, how many actual HBCUs do we get year in and year out that are actually eligible for that large bid? So I get it. And so what, these are 18 and 20-year-old kids and they want an opportunity to play again. And I'm telling you, the administrators are doing so by accepting those bids and, following on the sword spending whatever it costs to take that trip to God knows wherever they got to go, you know, ultimately for a first round loss. But I'm saying they do. They bite the bullet because of those 18-year-old kids who may not necessarily appreciate the budgets and all that other stuff. So, you know, I mean, I understand your point, but I think that's the reason why the schools do it too at the same time.
That
but
reminds me.
I was gonna say, like, I don't know how much validity I put into his deciding whether or not to go to a black college based on the prospect of going to the playoffs.
That was going
Yeah, because like if that's the case, then all the kids would go to certain schools and nobody would ever come to any other school. Like all the kids would go to North Dakota State, they go to South Dakota State, they'll go to some of the upper echelon teams at FCS, and no one would ever go anywhere else. The same argument can be made about the FBS. Well, everybody would just go to Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, and nobody would ever want to play for Kentucky. Nobody would ever want to play for Miami because God knows, like, go to schools, you can't play for the championship. Like that argument really doesn't jive with me. I don't understand like how that kind of equates in that way.
Trey Oliver made an interesting point and made an interesting comment in the Man Coaches Call this morning because Dwayne Nash from the Yard asked him if he felt like they were competing with PWIs for what used to be an HBCU player, and Trey said, "No, we're competing for the best football players." And I found that to be an interesting point because we're starting to see that the line of demarcation isn't as thick as it used to be when it comes to recruiting and different things of that nature. I mean, take it away from basketball for a second. I mean, football for a second. Take it to basketball. Norfolk State had one of the best women's basketball teams to ever step on a court in the HBCU space. And one of their best players was Diamond Johnson, who had previously played at PWIs. And talking to Larry Vickers during the Coaches Call last year, he said Diamond was offended that he didn't try to recruit her out of high school.
Wow.
Like she would have strongly considered Norfolk State as a freshman. So
that's kind of surprising to hear. So he didn't try to recruit her coming out of high school? Did he admit to that?
That's what he said in the Coaches Call.
She was sorry, Chris, but she was a top 10 recruit in that class that had Angel Reese in it, that had Caitlin Clark in it. That she was in that recruiting class. So she was in the top 10 of that recruiting class. So a lot of HBCUs get caught up on, you know, where a person is ranked in their recruiting class and think, well, is it worth my time to recruit them? And I don't want to say that this is fact, what I'm saying. I'm just saying this is my perspective of what I think goes on. I'm hypothesizing that you see somebody in a top 10 of a highly ranked recruiting class and you think like, I don't think it's worth my time to recruit them because I don't think that I will be able to get them. Just look at Mikey Williams. Mikey Williams, when he put out that tweet and said, I'm thinking about considering going to an HBCU. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he said when he said he would be interested in going to an HBCU, and then he ended up committing to Memphis. That's just, I think that's the HBCU's mentality. It's like, if I would have known that there was no chance of me getting him in the first place, I wouldn't go after him. So I think that's probably why. But in terms of the recruits thinking about postseason play when they're being recruited by certain programs, all kids care about is two things: the kind of recognition they're going to get in the playing time. The kind of recognition the program gets in the playing time. That's why I'll say this: into the transfer portal, because they realize the writing on the wall that they're not going to get playing time, so they transfer elsewhere. Or the coach that recruited them is now gone, and they realize that they're probably not going to get any playing time with this new coach that's coming in. So let me go into the transfer portal and either follow him or go somewhere where it's a much more favorable for me on that depth chart.
Yeah, I'll say this before we wrap up. Like, Campbell College had the #1 recruiting class 2 years in a row. I think it was 2022 and 2023, and that program has rarely ever been associated with going to the FCS playoffs or contending for a national championship. So I'm not kind of buying the argument that that's going to break the ice between a kid deciding to go to a PWI and a black college. But we'll leave it right there for tonight. Ken, say the thing you say at the end of the show to promote our brand and stuff like that.
Hey man, you guys look. We need your help. Become a level 1, level 2, or level 3 supporter by becoming an HBCU Sports member, and become a part of to be notified of some unique things as they become available. Also, and if you like it, feel free to go to our HBCU Sports shop and buy some of our HBCU merch. It will also go a long ways in helping to support the channel as well. So that's at shop.hbcusports.com.
Right, cool. All right, thanks for joining us, folks. Check out all our work on our website. You can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on X/Twitter. And I think we're still on TikTok. Ken is like firing up the TikToks. Some stuff from here will probably be on there in the coming days from our show, especially his rant against Stan Becton. It definitely might be on TikTok. Yeah, but thanks
It's
for
not a
joining us.
rant. I like Stan. Come on now.
We'll get you on Wednesday, Ram Nation. We'll get more CAA talk on Wednesday for you at our roundtable show. Hopefully, entire
No, just
cast
because
will be there.
WSSU Ram Nation asked for it, we're not gonna do it. Now you know I'm gonna get them to talk about Division II. If I'm gonna do anything, we're gonna talk about some Division II.
Yeah, but thanks everybody. I'm Kendrick. That's Chris. He's Ken and Jarrett. We're out.